Welcome to the Leadership Table, where conversations inspire, lead, and elevate. I'm your host, Jason E. Brooks, bringing you insights from top leaders shaping industries through leadership, culture, and success. Today, we're diving into effective restaurant management and achieving work-life harmony with our esteemed guest, Monte Silva. Now, Monte's journey in the restaurant industry, it began at the young age of 15, starting out as a dishwasher and working his way through various roles, including prep cook, line cook, busser, server, bartender. And within his first 4 years in management, he rose to the position of general manager for Wolfgang Puck, a testament to his dedication and expertise. However, this rapid ascent came with challenges, leading to burnout and personal hurdles. Determined to find a better way, Monte redefined his approach to restaurant management, emphasizing the importance of work-life balance. His leadership of several national restaurants, especially in the Nashville area, earned him recognition in many magazines such as Nashville Wine Press, The Tasting Panel, and Restaurant Business Magazine. Today, Monte is not only a restaurateur, but also a high-performance coach, author, speaker, and host of the Restaurant Success Club podcast. He works with restaurant owners and executives nationwide, helping them maximize success while maintaining a healthy work-life balance. But before we dive in, be sure to subscribe and share this episode with a fellow leader who could benefit from today's conversation. Monte, man, it's a pleasure to have you at the leadership table. To start off, can you share your journey, starting with your past, whatever that you want to talk through? You and I, we are great friends. Just tell the audience who you are and what you're about.
I don't know if I should add anything to what you said. I was looking around to see who you're talking about, Jason. I want to meet that guy, but I appreciate those kind words. And yes, we are good friends, and you've been on my show, and I'm excited to be on yours as well. My journey isn't really that different than a lot of other, restaurant people in the industry. I grew up in the business, started at 15, and like you said, I worked all back of the house, front of the house positions over about a 15-year span. Then I moved to the Caribbean, and I ran a bar as kind of like a lead bartender, manager kind of person. Did that for a while, and then moved back to California where I grew up, and moved to Southern California and went to work as an assistant restaurant manager for Chevy's Mexican restaurant. I loved their training program because you weren't hired as a one singular manager position. The goal was to cross-train you beyond just a month of training. So I spent a few months as a bar manager, then I was the assistant kitchen manager, and then I was the service manager, and then I was the chef. And then that was over a 2-year span. And then my mentor, Tom Bryan, moved to another company, and I followed him, and I was a GM within 6 months. So I'd already had all those management experiences, which helped me be a more successful GM. And then 2 years later, Wolfgang Puck offered me a job, and I was a general manager for him for a couple of years in Southern Cal. And then I was with him in Postrio at the Venetian in Las Vegas for 4 years. Then I moved to Nashville, started off at Fleming Steakhouse, moved to a couple other restaurants, including the Boundary, which was a really fun role because I got to recreate a hipster bar with really good pizza into an upscale dining opportunity. And that's where I was featured in Restaurant Business Magazine. Then I went on to work for Jeff Ruby Steakhouse, a $7 million a year restaurant. And then at Acme Feed and Seed, which is a very casual restaurant, 4 stories, something different going on every floor. That was a $17 million restaurant when I took over, and a year and a half when I got promoted to their director of ops. So we got the restaurant to $18.5 million. It was the 31st highest grossing restaurant in the country. From there, I was director of ops, and I was in a director of ops position up until COVID. And then I shifted. I moved to Tampa and started Monte Silva Coaching, which is what I run today. There's also some new news that you'll be one of the first to hear. I have a chef partner. Him and I started a company called 10 Tables Hospitality, and that is a restaurant ownership, management, and consulting company. So under Monte Silva Coaching, I coach restaurant owners and help them be successful. I'm a fractional director of ops for a client, and then I write and speak under Monte Silva Coaching. And then we are in the process of buying our first restaurant under 10 Tables Hospitality. And we will own restaurants and then have management contracts to help people run their businesses from the director of ops, HR, financial, accounting, marketing. And then we'll do some consulting. So we just got a contract to do a Mediterranean restaurant and a hotel. So we have a consulting contract. We're about to buy our first restaurant. There's a bunch of other great fun things happening there.
Now, most of these listeners, none of the listeners heard our conversation prior to getting onto this podcast. And we talked about cloning each other so that then we're able to get things done. I don't think you can clone 5 Montes and be able to get everything done that you get done that the normal person just couldn't do it. So that is a lot. You are slaying it right now. But the question is, the average person listening to this, if they're driving to work right now, they got white knuckles on their steering wheel because they're like, how do you keep up with that? They were stressed like my mind is blown. So I know that you experienced burnout early in your career, and yet you successfully redefined how you approach leadership and restaurant management. What was that turning point for you? And how did you create a sustainable work-life balance? And then how do you continue that now?
Yeah, thanks. I certainly don't feel like I wear a cape. I feel like I'm just an average person. And I went through, as you mentioned, I went through a very fast rise up to GM for Wolfgang Puck. At one point, I was running 2 restaurants as the GM, not as a director, and working 96 hours a week. And so it was pretty intense for sure. I was married, no kids, living in Southern California, and I was burned out from always working, went through a divorce. And so, I look back at my career and I've seen the peaks and valleys along the way. And that was certainly probably my deepest valley. And I took a little bit of break, and I actually went in Vegas. I ended up going back and waiting tables because I could make just as much money waiting tables without the stress, without the long hours, as I would as a GM of a restaurant. So I did that for a while and kind of thought about, okay, obviously I don't want to end up being a full-time server for the rest of my life. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's a great profession. But I didn't want to depend on tips on any particular shift. So I thought about, how do I kind of get back into what I'm doing? And so I moved to Nashville. I took a job with Fleming Steakhouse. And during that reflection time, I was able to think about, okay, what is the most important thing to me? And money wasn't it. Success wasn't it. I define success as doing what I love with people I love. And so whether that is working in a restaurant with a team that I care about and taking care of guests that I care about and loving that industry, or I'm at home with my wife and son. I did remarry in Nashville and have a wonderful 6-year-old son. And I'll get to that later, but I coach a soccer team, and I wouldn't have had time to do that if I didn't figure this out. So I thought that idea about multiplicity and, and cloning yourself. And I'm like, well, I don't know that I want another Monte. I need people that can do what I can't do, right? I need to fill the gaps.
Yes, it's true.
And I need to train people to be able to do certain aspects of the job and hopefully better than me so that we can be successful. So what I really figured out is success is about people. We can put systems in place and processes in place, but if we don't grow our people, then there's no one there to operate the systems. Hospitality is a team sport. We can't offer phenomenal hospitality and service without people. We can't create phenomenal product without people. And so what I used to do as a young manager is I was so task focused that if you weren't going to get it done, I would just run through you and get it done. And now instead of running through people, I've learned to work through people and bring them along with me. And I know you know this better than anyone with the focus that you have on leadership, but I really shifted my mindset and I learned that management, we manage process and tasks. We don't manage people, we lead people. And so I began to learn from other great people, reading books, having mentors that taught me how to lead people. Because when we grow up in this industry, we're a great server, we're a great bartender. When we get promoted to service manager or whatever, but no one teaches us how to lead people. We got promoted because we're task focused, because we have a skill set, but we never got trained on leadership mindset. So there was a big shift in my thinking about leadership, growing your people, and delegating as opposed to micromanaging, holding everything, as you said, in the white knuckles.
You nailed it. Doing what you love to do with people that you love to do that with. And that is one of the core things about true leadership, is finding ways to help spread your wings, bring in the people, as you said, that bring in the balance for the things that you're not so great at. It's good to understand what our weaknesses are, but that great leader finds ways to let others around us, let them shine because of their strengths, which then propels what we love to do forward. Now, you emphasize focusing on people, processes, purchases, product, and profits as key pillars. Can you break down how these contribute to a leader's success?
So anything, we talk about there's millions of things that can go wrong in a restaurant. There's millions of details, but they really all fall into 5 categories. They fall into those 5: people, processes, purchases, product, and profits. So when we talk about people, we talk about things like culture and the employee, right? Taking care of our team members. We talk about the guest. We talk about our vendors and partners. We talk about our community. We talk about our home life, right? So we've got to focus on the people. That, as I said earlier, that's the most important aspect, because even using, AI and tech and things that are out there, we can't lose that human touch with people. So we can use the tools to make us better at the interaction with people, but we can't replace the interaction with people. And the second thing is processes. Everything has a way of doing something. And someone that grew up with ADD, I had to figure out specific steps and rhythms that I needed to be in to make sure that I didn't forget to do something. And then we need to be able to teach those processes to other people so that we can scale and grow beyond ourselves, right? The third thing is purchases, and that really is twofold. That includes what the guest is purchasing, which helps drive sales. And it also includes what we purchase to help control costs, right? And then product quality is very, very important. You always want to put out the best possible food and drink, and you really don't want fluff on your menu that is not very good, because a guest may only experience that one item that's not your best and may not come back because of it. So menu engineering and things like that are very, very important when you're dictating your product. However, I fall back to people. People will accept lesser product quality if they feel cared for and loved, but nobody will put up with a lack of care for them to get a great dish, right? And so while product is very important, people still outranks everything. And then profits. I believe you drive profit by driving top line. We focus on dollars first and percentages second, because we don't take percentages to the bank. And so the goal is to build a bigger pie and then manage those pieces, as opposed to fighting over the crumbs. And my experience in my career is those that just cut, percentage, that is the fastest way to close your business. And so I think a lot of the failure rate of restaurants is because they don't understand that philosophy.
In hearing you speak several times since we've become closer, you actually speak through those 5 pillars so correctly. You are always spot on, and it's understanding the leadership aspect of those 5 things. And when I say leadership aspect, it's not just what's within your 4 walls that is going on. It's also what's trending within the industry, what's going on with the competition, what's coming down the pipeline with challenges within any of those pillars that others may not see, but you get that feeling that it may be coming up. Now, the people aspect, you really lean into that, which is true because hospitality is the core of what we do. Now, you also talk about moving beyond transactions to really create that human connection. What strategies do you recommend for fostering transformational leadership in hospitality and beyond?
Yeah, thanks. That's a big subject. I'm actually writing a second book right now called Transformational Hospitality. And the idea behind that is when we look at things like service is really a transaction. I'm going to do this for you and you're going to pay me, right? I'm going to take your order. I'm going to ring it in the computer. I'm going to bring your food. I'm going to bring you more drinks. I'm going to bring you your check. I'm going to close you out and you're going to pay me. Transformational hospitality is different than service. It's more, I think of service as a skill set. I think of hospitality as a mindset. I think of service as meeting or exceeding guests' physical needs. I need a steak knife for my steak. Hospitality is more about meeting or exceeding their emotional needs. And I have a really cool story, something that I can't really take credit for, but it happened in my restaurant. I was running a restaurant in a hotel in Nashville, and this is a very emotional story. So if I get a little choked up, I'm warning you now. And in that restaurant, we were on the bottom floor lobby of the hotel, and just outside our restaurant was a space to sit in the lobby. And my hostess stand looks at the door that faces the lobby, and the hostess saw this man, he's probably in his 40s, crying in the lobby. I think a lot of us don't want to embarrass ourselves or the person, and so we kind of like do this when we see an uncomfortable situation. But because of her compassion and empathy, she went up to the man and she said, "Hey, are you okay?" And he explained to her that he had bought tickets to this concert that was his son's favorite concert here in Nashville. And they were planning on traveling to Nashville for the trip. And his son passed away in a car wreck the week before. So he's here to go see the concert by himself without his son to see his son's favorite band. My hostess could have just said, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and gone back to her work. But instead, she went to one of the managers on my team in the restaurant and said, "Hey, this is what's going on." My managers spoke with the hotel because we knew that the band was staying in the hotel. And so the hotel arranged for him to go backstage and meet the band and to have a bunch of signed merchandise that he was going to be able to take back to his son's bedroom and put up. That's transformational hospitality. It's not transactional. There was a human connection that was made, and it's something that every time that man looks at that wall and sees the signed merchandise, he's going to remember that moment. That's what excites me, is when we have those opportunities. I wasn't even present. I was off that day. And so when you can get your people to think that way, it's so important. And so I think that it comes into hiring mindset over skill set. We can train someone to host, right? But we can't train someone to think like that. And I think that that's the biggest thing when I interview people is I look at what's the mindset. Are these people that truly care about other human beings And if they do, then I want them on my team.
Even whenever you think back to the term restaurant, and I know you and I, we both focus on leadership, on coaching, on systematic approaches to really connect the human behavior to results within your business. But when you think back to the original restaurant, someone that was making soup and they had a sign out front and said, "Come in and let me restore you." Restaurant, restore you. Those connections like that. When you see someone broken down, going through emotional change, through emotional motions, and being able to help restore that individual, not just with a upsell at the bar to a premium liquor, not just with a good table that has a window view, but actually help to restore that person and their soul. You are correct. That is the true connection, shifting from transactional into that human connection. Now, I want to shift gears, okay? Because whenever we do bring in these people, we have to bring them in like we're building a world-class MLS team, a world-class NFL Super Bowl championship team. We are building high-performance teams. It is about, of course, still driving results. What are some of the key ingredients to cultivating a high-performance culture within a team, regardless of the industry?
So when it comes to culture, I think about the word agriculture because it's agriculture, and I compare building culture to that. So if you don't mind, I'll do a quick. So soil in agriculture is either going to be toxic or it's going to have minerals and things in it to help things grow, right? And so that's your culture. It's very important to have a culture that's not toxic, that allows people to grow. The second thing in agriculture is the seed. Now, if you want an apple seed, you don't plant an orange. If you want an apple tree, you don't plant an orange seed. So if hospitality is a core ingredient or high performance is a core ingredient in your culture, then what you need to do is you need to look for those kinds of seeds, right? You need a hospitality person. So when I interview people, again, I ask them a lot of personal questions and try to dig into who they are. And I've been asked, one time I asked a guy, "What do you like to do when you're not working?" And he said, "I like to volunteer for the blind." Well, that's someone who cares about people, right? So he was immediately on my team. So the first thing is really making sure that you have a culture that's not toxic, that can allow people to grow. Then you find the right people to put into that. So if high performance is one of those, then you need to find high performing people. And one of the ways to do that is to always be looking. I think so often business owners, which include the restaurant industry and other industries, they get so bogged down in the day-to-day that they don't have time to make a couple moments if somebody walks in and they just say, "Go fill this out online," right? It's very disconnecting to the person walking in. When you think about business being like sports, you always want to recruit the best people you can possibly get. If you are only looking when you need someone, you tend to make a very snap decision. I need a body, so you hire a body. If you're always looking for high performance people and you make yourself available when they become evident, then you're going to be able to hire high performance people. So think about the Yankees. The Yankees had Jeter, one of the best players to play the game. Well, when A-Rod came along, they didn't say, "Oh, we already got Jeter. We have a position. We have someone in that position. We don't really need another Golden Glover." No, they said, "Well, yeah, we'll take him." Okay, who's going to play a different base, a different position? So I think that first thing we need to do is always be looking for the best talent we find. And not wait and then grab the first body. If we're replacing bodies, if Tampa Bay would have been just replacing bodies, they already had a quarterback before Tom Brady came on the team. But they took Tom Brady because he's a winner, right? So those are kind of some examples about always be looking. And then the other thing is, how do we keep those people? Well, we keep those people by setting them up for success with proper training, which is the next part of agriculture. You have to water the plant. You have to water the seed for it to grow, and that's training. And if you cut corners on training, then you're limiting the potential of that superstar. And you're setting up for success when you could properly train them. The next thing is sunlight. Plants need sunlight to grow, and so that's affirmation. You want to focus on the things that people are doing right. If somebody has a great review and says, Steve gave us phenomenal service, he recommended some perfect dishes, he told us where to go, to visit, an attraction while we were in town, I'm going to read that review in front of the staff in a pre-ship meeting, as affirmation of the kind of behavior we're looking for. So you've got the soil, which is culture. You have the seed, which is the team player. And if you can create a high performance culture and a high performance player, and then put them in a high performance training, which is watering the plant, and then you affirm the behavior that you want, which is the sunlight, then the only thing that's really left is to remove the toxic weeds. Because if you allow toxic people in your organization, your great people will leave. Your high-performance people will lower their standards. And so really to be able to have a high-performance team and culture, you start with the culture. What does that look like? You hire the people that are going to fit that role. You properly train them. You properly affirm them. And then you make sure that there are nothing in the way, including toxic people, that's going to stop them from being high performing.
Although you used a lot of agricultural terms, which is spot on, with the soil, with the sunlight, with planting the right seed, with making sure that you're giving the right nutrients in order to grow. You also used a lot of sporting terms, a lot of sports terms. Now, yes, you do help coach, or you do coach your son's soccer team, but you and I we both offer coaching and consulting. Most people think that it's almost the same thing. Of course, you and I both know one is a more personalized approach to the individual. The other one is a deeper dive into the business. You offer private one-on-one coaching instead of traditional coaching, or instead of traditional consulting, or I think you may do both. You can correct. Why do you believe that private one-on-one coaching leads to more sustainable success for leaders and business owners over consulting?
Well, you and I have actually had a lot of these conversations, and your business is very similar to mine in a lot of areas. And I love learning from you as you continue to grow your business. And I value the fact that we share knowledge back and forth between us. It's definitely helped my career by having you in my life. So let me start with that. To me, consulting is a work for hire. I need you to fix my food cost. I need you to write a beverage program. I need you to write training materials. You're trading your time for a product, right? It's a work for hire. It's giving a man a fish or a woman. Coaching. So I'll use another physical sporting things. Everyone in this country knows that if you work out and you eat right, you're going to be in great shape or good shape. But yet the U.S. is one of the most obese nations in the world. And that's because we don't have the motivation to actually do it, right? And so the difference, someone that is going to give you a diet and a workout plan is a consultant. Somebody that comes alongside of you and works the plan with you is a coach. So a personal trainer that meets you at the gym to make sure that you are, in fact, doing the reps and following up with you to find out what you ate that day, that is someone that's taken an interest in walking alongside of you and helping you through the tough times. And so I prefer that because that's more relational. for me. That's less transactional like a consultant, and it's more relational. And so I offer 90-day one-on-one coaching with restaurant owners, and I work with them and their GMs to establish the targets and the KPIs that the owner wants to see happen. And then I work with the owner to keep them on track of moving the ball forward and not being caught up in working in the business, but working on the business. And then I work with the GMs to make sure that they understand the mission, the commander's intent. If you've read the book, I can't remember the name, it's on my shelf, but Extreme Ownership, it's called.
Yes.
He talks about commander's intent, right? That there's the ability in combat to be able to maneuver on a split second without getting direction, but you still need to know the objective. And so I work with the GMs to move them towards what the owners want to see. And so it's more of teaching a man to fish than it is giving a man to fish. And so that's the biggest difference, along with the fact that it's ongoing and more successful, and for the fact that I get to create relationships with people. And I begin, even though I'm an outsider and having an outside view, I get drawn in to the relationship and really wanting to see their success. So that's the biggest difference. And I was not doing any consulting up until now, because it was everything through Monte Silva coaching was either one-on-one coaching or group coaching or membership. Christian and I just started a membership site called thehouseofhumans.com, and it's a chance for a community to learn from each other. Then in 10 Tables Hospitality, with my chef partner, one of the things we're going to do is consulting. So if you do want a culinary package for a restaurant, we can provide that for you as a work for hire. But that work we do through 10 Tables Hospitality. The coaching I'm keeping to one-on-one coaching, group coaching, and also I'm a fractional director of ops for a company, and then writing books and speaking at conferences and training.
For those that don't know, if you haven't read Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, oh my gosh, it has some amazing tactical leadership tips that everyone should know. You don't have to be in the fittest shape, ex-Navy SEAL or in the Marines to read that book. It is focused on building high-performance teams, on leadership and taking ownership and accountability of your business, of yourself, and of your team. It's an amazing read. Also, Christian Fisher, an amazing chef, amazing entrepreneur, an amazing person, period, that also focuses on the human side of who we are and what we do. Now, Monte, I only have a few more minutes, but I got to get in a few more questions. We can do this all day long. Typically, we do this all day long, but what leadership trends do you see shaping the future? And how can business owners and executives help prepare for these trends?
I think that there's definitely a shift to appreciating soft skills more than in the past. I think that understanding that how we lead people is so important. Simon Sinek is a big proponent of this, and there's some thought leaders who are changing the scope of leadership. And I believe that in the past, the focus on leadership was really solely on developing you as a leader, right? But I think it's important to then develop leaders underneath you. And like I said before, I think that a lot of people in business get promoted because of their skill set, but there's no mentorship to move them along and make sure that they understand the necessary soft skills that will make them successful. And I think that businesses are beginning to understand that through great thought leaders like yourself, Simon Sinek, people like that. Your book talks all about that. And I think that there's a shift finally in business where leadership and soft skills is really becoming the main focus for how we lead.
For those listeners that are unsure of what that book is Every Leader Needs Followers, 10 Keys to Transform Restaurant Managers into Hospitality Leaders. And like Monty, I am also working on my second book as well. And it's Every Team Needs Coaching. And it is the focus on the coaching aspect. It's written similar to the format for Every Team Needs, or for Every Leader Needs Followers, but Every Team Needs Coaching really dives into that, creating the environment to help your team get from one area to the next area, whether keying in on small groups or on one-on-ones. Now, here at the leadership table, we believe in conversations that inspire, lead, and elevate. So, what's one conversation in your career that profoundly shaped you as a leader?
It's hard to pinpoint that to one conversation. I think that there's been multiple conversations that have shaped this. I think that understanding that your employees are an asset instead of a liability is very, very important. If we look at an employee as a liability on our P&L, they're on the labor line and they're a subtraction, right? We subtract that dollar amount from our profit. And when we do that, we think of them as a liability, and everyone tries to minimize liability. So we shrink their pay. We don't pay them what they're worth. We don't train them properly because we're trying to save a couple bucks. We schedule them as little as possible. And by doing that, you're minimizing any chance of having a high performance team. When you think of them as an asset, if I invest $50K in the market and it turns into $75,000, I'm pretty happy, right? It's an asset that's growing for me. And if we think of our people like that, where they're an asset on the balance sheet instead of a liability on the P&L, we begin to look for ways to grow that asset. So we spend time developing them. We make sure that we pay them something that's going to show them that we value them. And when we do that, when we show our people that they're valued and we treat them like an asset and we invest in them, then ultimately they go far beyond what they thought they were capable of. And it's really, in my mind, the greatest thing that I've learned over the last 20 years is if we can make our people assets, if we can think of them that way instead of liabilities, there's no end to how big of a pie we can build.
Love it. Love it. Now, Monty, before we wrap up, where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your work?
My website, montesilvacoaching.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on YouTube, Restaurant Success with Monte Silva. I'm Monte Silva Coaching on Instagram. If you are interested in finding out more about the membership, being a part of a community, you can go to www.thehouseofhumans.com. And, like you, I'm doing the membership and the group coaching and the one-on-one coaching. And I know you're doing the same. And I think it's fantastic that there are multiple opportunities out there for people to be cared for. And I think our industry and the business world needs 1,000 more Jasons. And so I applaud you for all that you do for the industry. And I'm excited to continue to work with you as a colleague to change leadership and business from the inside.
Thank you, Monty. Being in your circle, getting to understand your world, it's been an amazing journey just within that time frame. Like you, I've learned so much from you. This is a lot of love that's going on this podcast. But yes, I absolutely love Monte Silva, and I'm glad you made time within your busy day to speak on these topics, to help business leaders know what they can bring to the table. Now, today we learned about Monty's inspiring leadership journey, the importance of balancing work and life, and the principles behind building a thriving, high-performing team. Monty, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us at the leadership table. And to our listeners, If you found a value in today's conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a fellow leader. You can also visit www.jasonebrooks.com for more leadership insights and resources. Until next time, keep leading with impact, and remember, manage, lead, coach, repeat. Thank you, Monte.
Thanks, Jason. Always a pleasure.